Disney classics, original programs, National Geographic, Marvel TV shows and movies, Star Wars. Now, these are just some of the choices you'll get on Disney Plus. And this is the podcast for Disney Plus fans. Join Scott Murray, Regina Davis, and Nathan Chick as they bring you breaking news, programming recaps, in-depth discussions, and insightful interviews that will take your Disney Plus fandom to new levels. Welcome to the Disney Plus Streamcast.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Disney Plus Streamcast. I'm Scott Murray, and this is Regina Davis.
Hello, hello.
Well, later on, Tessa Smith of mamasgeeky.com will join us to talk about Toy Story 4 and the legacy of those movies.
And it is quite a legacy, considering it all started way back in 1995.
That's hard to believe, isn't it?
Yes, I've been on this journey since I was 4.
Yeah. They've talked so much about how long it's been, and I just forgot. I mean, you know, we've gotten so deep into the 2000s, you forget stuff started in the 90s.
It's crazy. It's so weird.
But, I mean, here we are in 2019, and there have been 3 more movies since that very first one. There's also been TV specials, and, of course, the big presence at both Disney parks.
Yes, but before we discuss the lives of Woody, Buzz, and the gang, we need news.
And that means we need news with Nathan. Hello, Nathan.
Why, hello, my lady. Hello, my lord. How are you doing?
Good.
Very good, sir. How are you?
Oh, you know, just thriving on the latest trailer drop from Walt Disney. Did you see the Mulan trailer drop?
Yes.
What do you think?
I am really excited. That may stem from me being a really big fan of, you know, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, all that kind of thing really gets me going. I know a few of my friends are kind of upset because there's no Mushu per se. They're not doing, you know, the actors actually singing the songs. It's just going to be, you know, primarily sort of woven into the orchestra. Then, you know, a few other things, but I am absolutely hyped. I think it looks like they're sort of going to mold it into its own sort of animal, but it's going to have, you know, it's going to be deeply rooted in Mulan. And I think that's going to be really cool because the problem I had with Beauty and the Beast was it was just almost like a frame for frame remake. And while that's okay, it has to be incredibly impressive and be able to sort of stand on its own 2 feet. And it didn't really do that for me. But with Mulan, they're not running that risk. And I'm incredibly excited.
I never saw the animated one, so...
What?
I remember seeing...
It's cool.
I remember seeing Mulan in Once Upon a Time, back when it was on TV.
Oh, man. Oh, you'd love it. Oh, it's so cool. Oh,
Yeah.
If you don't watch it, I quit. That's crazy. She's my favorite Disney princess. We're not messing around here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like if you're down with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all the Jeff Loeb shows as well, you have to watch it just because of Ming Na, you know.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a given, but it does stand up very well by itself. Yeah, looking really, really good. So you've got that historical epic thing going on, ties into the actual lore of the story more so than the cartoon did. Cartoon, can I say that? Should I say animated feature? It sounds a bit more grown up if I say that. But yeah, it has that kind of Red Cliff. If you ever watched that movie, the Jet Li movie, looks really, really awesome. All the archers and the cavalry's kind of got that Musu thing. Yeah, the wire fu. We're excited for it, so that's cool. Let's talk about a movie that's out now, Spider-Man. I haven't seen it yet, so no spoilers, dudes. But $185 million in 6 days of being open, $580 million worldwide. People said that there was superhero movie fatigue, that people were over it. Apparently not. Analysts are saying it's because not only is it just really, really good, Rotten Tomatoes has awesome reviews for it, Also, the press junket, Tom Holland and Jake Gyllenhaal are really, really endearing when they're interacting. At the same time, that those guys have a lot of, I think, they kind of got that buddy cop vibe going on. They have a lot of fun talking together and being interviewed together. And also the stingers. People say the stingers at the end, they say it's the best possible setup that you could have for the next wave of MCU movies. Have you guys seen that yet?
I have not seen it, but I have heard, without it being spoiled for me, because my friends know that I take it very seriously, so they know how to describe things to me now. But apparently, I mean, I don't know now if I'm more excited for the movie or these post-credit scenes, because people are, just saying such great things about them. But, I'd heard the same thing about the superhero fatigue, but everybody that I know and have spoken with that has come out of this movie has said that it was just incredibly stunning. It was really fun, really well written. Jake Gyllenhaal was amazing because people weren't so sure about Mysterio, but everybody that walks out of those doors is just a changed person. So I can't wait.
I have seen it. And
Give us your verdict.
Oh, it's great. Of course it's great. I still think that Tom Holland's the best Spider-Man we've had on the big screen. That continues to be the case. I think it's better than the first one, and I like the first one a lot.
First one was great.
The superhero fatigue amuses me because sometimes what happens when people say that, and I've listened to people on the radio that don't have near the clue that perhaps the three of us have. So they'll see a movie like X-Men, the last X-Men, the Dark Phoenix movie, and when that movie doesn't pull well, they'll be like, oh, there you go, it's superhero fatigue, not realizing it's not in the MCU. It's not exactly the same studios. It's not the same audience. It doesn't have the same track record as a lot of the MCU movies have. So I'm always kind of amused that certain things from different places with different track records get tied into everything else as a sign that the whole thing is coming down.
Yes, and well, so far, all the people I've seen that have called superhero fatigue are people who don't like superheroes in the first place. So it's not surprising coming from them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When you've waited your life to see something come on the screen that kind of lives up to what you had in your imagination, that jumps off the panels of the page. And they do it so well. I mean, that's the thing. It's like comic books, but bigger and better. And I don't know any other better way to explain that except to say that I used to love comic books when I was a kid. And this is that medium. It's almost like in 3D for me. It's like IMAX 3D, VR, immersive, everything. When I see those, it's how I imagined it to be, which normally, your imagination outstrips the technology, but not in this case.
Yeah,
this is everything I want. Yeah.
They're literally making our dreams come true. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack when I saw Mysterio printed on a bag of Doritos at the grocery store.
Yes,
like if you had told 12-year-old Regina that, don't worry, you just have to wait till you're 27. I mean, I would have been like, never going to happen.
Right, indeed.
And I have a feeling for those, I mean, even outside of Marvel, for those who are anticipating superhero fatigue, I think there's going to be a few people that go see the next Wonder Woman movie, too.
Oh, yeah.
So this really tickled me when I saw this the other day. Hot Toys. I don't know if you're familiar with Hot Toys. Hot Toys make really, really super detailed scale action figures. It doesn't do it justice. They're about a foot tall. They come with proper tailoring on the outfits. Everything's meticulously hand painted. They're super articulated, lots of different accessories and weapons and all those bits and bobs. My Agent Coulson, which is the pride and joy in my collection, he has the suit, he has the little shield pass, he has the destroyer gun, his walkie-talkie, he has a shield file, he even has his blood-stained Captain America mint trading cards with just a hint of foxing around the edges. They're doing a Stan Lee. They've done a Stan Lee before, but they're desperate to commemorate him, and I'm sure they'd go on as long as they could because it's Stan Lee, Stan the man. Without him, none of us are really into this the same way. It's based on his cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when he's hanging out with the Watchers on the little planetoid, and he's there in his yellow spacesuit, and he's got his big Stan the Man flash grin on him. He's got his golden sunglasses, and the whole thing just looks so lovely. It's probably the nicest tribute I've seen for him in a while. If you're interested, $274. They're a little on the spendy side, but what a really, really gorgeous way to celebrate your love for all things Marvel. You know, Excelsior, make my Marvel. What else? You know, I'm just such a fan.
Yes. Oh, I cannot think of anything more fitting because, they are constantly, paying tribute in comic book form and in the movies. But, having, another action figure that's dedicated to, his legacy, I think is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, I did put a sneaky pre-order in on the old Captain America with Mjolnir and the broken shield, but I feel like I
nice.
might stand the man
Yes.
to kind of hang up behind him because, as I say, without him, none of this is possible.
That's true.
Let's pivot a little bit to what we were talking about last week. We were talking about live action Disney and the Disney Vault and all that good stuff. And we were wondering, Little Mermaid, there is a Little Mermaid one, right? There is a Little Mermaid, one in production. Rob Marshall is helming that. The guy who won the Oscar for Chicago, he also did, I hate to say it because I can't stand it, but Into the Woods. I know it's not cool to trash Sondheim, but oh my gosh, between that and James Corden, I feel like I die inside every time I hear that song. He also did the Mary Poppins remake recently, or the revisited. But yeah, he's doing the live action Little Mermaid, and he has bona fides in musical theatre, so he knows what he's doing. He's cast Halle Bailey from Chloe and Halle, I think I've got that the right way around, as his Ariel. And some folks are not happy about it because they want a red-headed, white-skinned Ariel, and they've taken to Twitter using the hashtag #NotMyAriel to signal their discontent. If you've heard her sing, you'll be a believer. I'm really emotionally kind of connected to Ariel. That's my princess. I know I shouldn't say that, and that's probably the worst thing I've ever said in my life. If that ever makes it on my
Say it all you want. That's perfectly okay.
No. If I ever put that on my OkCupid on Tinder, I'm dead in the water. It's never going to happen.
I like Rapunzel from Tangled, so we all have our favorites.
Well, it's just, I remember being at Fan Expo a couple of years ago, and Jodie Benson did a panel there with this Julian, and at the end of the panel, she just got up like it was nothing and started singing Part of Your World. And to hear that song live, I mean, believer, it was like goosebumps, and my eyes were watering up. My kids were like, "Dad, are you crying?" No, you idiots! It's just unseasonably dusty in here. Like, men don't cry at Disney, like songs like that. But it was amazing, and I loved it. And so, you're gonna have some pretty big shoes to fill there. But oh my gosh, guys, if you go on their YouTube channel, Chloe and Halle, amazing, just amazing. And I just wonder what the outrages is all about, actually, given that it's a fairy story from years and years and years and years and years ago. I don't get it. It's the bit of fandom that continues to just like exasperate me and baffle me.
I'm right there with you. It boggles my mind. Now, I don't have, my only requirement for Ariel, visually, is that she's a mermaid. She's, a pretty mermaid. What I was worried about, because I had never heard of this girl before, was what does she sound like singing?
Yeah. Because
Ariel's voice is, a key component to the story. And I feel like if it didn't sound a certain way, it was going to sort of, take me out of it. It was going to break the immersion for me. But as soon as I heard her, I was like, oh, this is going to be totally fine. Like, this is going to be perfect. And so I just encourage anyone who, is having a problem accepting her casting to do what Nathan suggested. Just look her up on YouTube and you'll feel fine about it afterwards.
It's an extension of the challenges and risks that go into doing this. We've talked on this show and in other shows about adaptation and what people want out of adaptation. In this case, you've got a group of people that want to see Ariel the way they've seen Ariel on the animated version, and they're not going to get that, so they're upset, okay? And then there's the side that says, you know what good does it do to see everything that we know is going to happen the way it always happens in the animated version, kind of like what Regina was referring to earlier, frame by frame, only live action. So it's almost, you're going to frustrate somebody no matter what you do. But this also could go into the camp, too, of, people may not know what to think, but I think all we know right now is that she's playing Ariel. We don't know anything else about the film, haven't seen any footage, and I think that's going to change some people's minds a little bit when you hear her sing in a trailer or something, or actually see footage. I even think some of those people that are initially frustrated now will go check it out, might even like what they see. And the fact they may actually like it's different. I mean, I think it's a little bit similar, not exactly similar to when people would say, holy crap, they're making Heath Ledger the Joker. Well, that's not going to work.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, I think if Aladdin can overcome Blue Will Smith CGI for Genie, then I reckon Halle's got a good old chance of winning people over as Ariel. And I guess my last thing I'll leave you with, sad day for Disney Channel fans, as we're mourning the loss of Cameron Boyce, who was, I think, 4 seasons on Jessie, the Debbie Ryan vehicle, and obviously all the crossovers that go with that. Also played Carlos on Descendants 1 and 2, and the third one, which is actually coming out next month. It's been in the can for about 6-7 months. Kenny Ortega left a really, who's the director of that, I should say, left a really lovely tribute on his Instagram about him. And that's a man who I think anyone who's into Disney Channel knows anything about. Guy behind High School Musical, did the Michael Jackson movie as well, This Is It. Without him, probably Disney Channel doesn't go through that sort of stratospheric leap into, its sort of next phase of evolution in the 2000s without him, because what he did for that I guess genre of young teen entertainment, I don't think anyone else has really done it since. But anyway, the castmates super tight. E! Online has said that they're devastated. They were just getting back together to do press for the movie, and it's going to put a slightly different shade on things now that he's gone. But in any case, remembering Cameron Boyce, I know from the Descendants movies, and indeed Jessie, my kids had me watch that all the time with them. That's kind of their age, their sort of genre that they were into. And yeah, really talented actor gone too soon.
It's really sad. But one of the things that you can sort of learn about him is, seeing how many people are reacting to his loss and how profoundly it's affecting so many people. I think that just speaks to, how good of a person he was when he was alive. Yeah,
I mean, even Adam Sandler did a nice remembrance, because he played, I guess, one of his kids in the grown-up movies.
Indeed.
And yeah, I mean, this is terrible. I mean, this is, anytime anything like this happens, I mean, he's like 20 years old. Apparently, he had a medical condition that caused him to have a seizure while he was sleeping, and that's what caused it. Something that, no control over. So, yeah, unbelievably tragic, but it is really nice to see all the people that are sending out tributes online.
Absolutely. And guys, that's about all I have for you this week, except to say, when I listened to your interview with Teresa in the last podcast, you guys were talking about live action things coming out of the vault, and I have to say I'm about ready to disown all of you, because it begins at Condor Man and it starts and it ends at Condor Man, and it's just Condor Man. That's all it is. If you guys have never seen it, you're missing out. Sister Ebert said it was one of the worst films of 1981. It's got Michael Crawford in it, and I ask you, what sort of movie that has the Phantom of the Opera in it could possibly be bad in any place? I'm just saying.
And don't forget, it also has the great James Hampton in it too.
Oh, you know it. Absolutely. It's a gem. It's a treasure. And I was disgusted by its omittance last time. And as far as Disney soundtracks go, Partysaurus Rex, very apt for today's show. It's a banger.
Well, I mean, we had to leave some doors open. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to end this segment as well as we just did. So there we go. Everything has a purpose. Everything happens for a reason.
Well, that's me. Thank you so much again for having me.
Thank you,
I bid you pip cheerio, and until next time, take it steady.
All right, we'll see you next time. Well, we fully expect Toy Story movies to be on Disney+, but that doesn't launch until November.
But Toy Story 4 is out now, and we're ready to talk about it with Tessa Smith of mamasgeeky.com.
That's next on the Disney Plus Streamcast. As you know, you can get a new episode of the Disney Plus Streamcast every 2 weeks. It's easy to get a new episode right when it posts by subscribing to the show on podcast hubs like iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. And if you're a Marvel fan, you'll definitely want to join us for our next episode.
Yes, we're going to be diving into the shared comic book history of the Vision and Scarlet Witch to prepare you for the upcoming series WandaVision. They've got some major ups and downs in their story, and, any number of which could pop up in the show. To me, I think they're one of the most interesting relationships in Marvel Comics, so there's going to be plenty to cover.
In other words, there is legitimate reasons for why they would put those two together in a television series.
Yes.
Well, Regina, we ran just one poll since our last show, but it was a very important one. It simply asked how people would grade Toy Story 4. And the choices were A, B, C, or F. And which grade do you think won that poll?
I was so skeptical about a Toy Story 4 movie that I would have been very unsure about this poll. But after seeing it, there's no doubt in my mind that it got an A.
It did. 89% of the people picked A. There was only B is as far as it got, 11% on B in the votes that we got. I can't imagine anybody saying that was terrible. Although I did think I saw a couple of people that thought it was like a borderline good movie, but we're talking rare species or rare instances of people there. I went into it and came out loving it more than I really thought I would. And it's not because I didn't expect a good movie. It's just that I guess that's it. I expected a good movie and I came out really, really liking it a lot.
Yeah, I expected a good movie. I just didn't know really what it was going to be about. And, they completely exceeded my expectations, and it was just as magical as the first three.
We were talking as we got started today about how many years it's been. And, we think about what a big milestone it was to have Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War, because it was a big culmination of these characters that we've been invested in for 10 years.
Yes.
And now, think about how that's very similar to how invested people are in these characters for something that started practically well over 20 years ago.
Oh, it's crazy. And, none of the Toy Story movies have ever been made just for kids. They always, had really, really great writing so that someone of any age could appreciate it. But what was so special is that they were able to make that, hold up over 20 years and more. And so, for them to have a movie that, even all these crazy adults care so deeply about, whether they have children or not, I think is a really special achievement.
One of the things we're going to talk about today is what happens next. And I had a funny thought. So remember how, so many people, especially people that are kids at heart, that saw Toy Story 3 and talked about how traumatizing it was. And a lot of that comes from, nostalgia and then, having that attachment to things and remembering those things. But then on the flip side of that, we have what toy collecting has become in 2019. That's a big business. And there's a lot of people that were young Andy's age that are now grown up going back and finding those toys. Wouldn't it be interesting? I wonder what would happen if, these toys go on to have these extended lives and then adult Andy decides to become a collector and he goes down and tracks Woody down. And Woody's like, woohoo, I get to be with Andy again. But all he does is sit him on a shelf for everybody to look at.
Right? He sits on a shelf next to a whole bunch of anime waifus.
Yeah.
And he's just like, what is this?
There was a Saturday Night Live skit. I don't know if you've seen it, but there was this Saturday Night Live skit. It was almost like this commercial for Star Wars toys. And talking about how awesome all these new Star Wars toys are, very much, in the vein of how they used to be back in the 80s when Kenner was pushing all their stuff out on ads and the kids would have all their toys and they'd be going, this is awesome, and they're doing this. But then out of nowhere, it starts with these kids, but then out of nowhere, these adults come in and go, yeah, and we love to have them too so we can put them on our shelf. And the kids keep looking, I'm like,
Oh my God, I have not seen that, but that's me. I can't even pretend it's not. I'm looking at a shelf full of toys right now.
It's really something to think that 4 movies, I mean, geez, it just goes to show you, too, the amount of time it takes to produce these films, to think 4 movies in 20 years when we just got talking about how many Marvel movies have been made in 10.
Right?
It
Wow.
just shows you how meticulous things have to be to make these things work. And I love the story that we got in Toy Story
Yes.
4. And we've had a chance to obviously see the film, and so has today's special guest.
Yes, that's me.
Oh, sorry
That's
about
me,
that.
Scott.
Sorry,
Sit down.
I had to roll it down.
Yes, our guest today is Tessa Smith. She's a blogger at mamasgeeky.com, which is probably my favorite website URL of all time. She's one of 5 female hosts who talk geek stuff on The Geekly Show. Plus, she's written for Screen Rant, and she's a critic for Rotten Tomatoes. So this lady knows her stuff.
She does, and based on what I've seen of her on Twitter, I'm thinking she's probably one of those critics that helped the most recent movie, Toy Story 4, earn a 98% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And she's here to talk Toy Story 4 with us and the legacy of the franchise. Welcome, Tessa.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
One of the reasons we knew we were going to be talking about Toy Story because I think at least Toy Story 1 has been confirmed for Disney Plus, and I'm pretty sure the others are going to follow. Can't imagine anywhere else they'd put them. We knew we were going to talk about Toy Story, but we wanted to wait for the 4th film to come out just because there was so much curiosity surrounding it. And I know that you got to go to a screening relatively early. And I think some of the things that you said in your instant reaction when you were only able to say so much really kind of put in perspective what a lot of people I think were thinking. And that was, is this really going to work? Does this make sense? Do we need this? Because I think your words were, you weren't sure we needed this either. But then after you saw Toy Story 4, you said, oh, yeah, we absolutely need this. They made this work and it's awesome.
Yeah, basically, I love Toy Story. The first one, the second one, the third one. I thought the third one was a perfect ending, as I think a lot of people did.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was completely shocked when they first announced there was going to be a 4th one. I was like, where could this go? And actually, after the screening, we got to interview the filmmakers and the cast. And one of the things they said really stuck with me was that 3 was a perfect ending, yes, for Andy and Woody's story. But Woody still had story to tell, and that is why we got 4. And I am so thankful that we did, because I feel like Woody deserved it almost. He really deserved that ending.
I agree.
Yeah, I totally get that because I found myself in a similar position because I think maybe the fear was that they were just, that the studio was going to do what a lot of studios do, which is milk this thing. They go, all we have to do is we'll just throw him to another family and we'll make 3 movies about that family. Which is
they
what a
could
lot of
have done.
studios would have done. Yeah, absolutely.
They're way too good of storytellers for that kind of thing, as we've seen 3 times over.
Right. And it was because they said, too, a lot of people think we're doing this to be a cash cow. But if we thought it wasn't a real true story, we wouldn't have told it. And people really tried them to get to say, is there going to be a 5, a 6? Because honestly, the way this ended, there's so many different routes and offshoots they could go.
Mm-hmm.
And they were basically like, well, if we find another story to tell, we will. But they did announce, and I'm sure you guys have heard it by now, but they dropped it on us then, that Forky is getting his own Disney Plus series, which I'm pretty excited about.
So good. I was sort of skeptical about that after the trailer. I was like, how attached am I gonna get to a utensil, really?
Yeah.
And then they sure showed me, because holy cow. And that's what they do. They just get you so invested. And I honestly, I love Toy Story so very much, but I was one of those skeptical people because they rounded out Toy Story 3 so beautifully that I was like, how can you give it an additional ending after that? I really just wasn't sure. And then they just laid it out, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, the beautiful is a great word. I really agree with that.
And what's kind of funny is I saw Toy Story 3 the day before I saw Toy Story 4.
Really? You hadn't
Oh,
seen
like
it?
for the first time?
No, because I kind of go out of my way these days when I consider the reasons why I go to the movies, not to be overly sad or traumatized.
Right.
And I heard all my friends were like, "Oh my God, it was just it was just brutally sad." I'm like,
I mean, I cried for a very long time after 3.
Yeah.
It was a mess.
It was rough.
but I knew I was going to have to see it before 4, so I now have seen all 4 of them.
Oh my gosh,
Wow.
but how did you do those 2 in a row? I would have been a mess. Like,
Seriously.
I think it's because I was prepared. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd heard so much about why. Gosh, I was trying to remember the other day. There's a movie, I think, even where they're talking about, I think one's making fun of the other. I can't remember the name of the movie, but one person's making fun of the other about how emotionally distraught they got after seeing Toy Story 3. And I remember the response was, "Oh my
Yes,
gosh, I
there's-
was there with them, though, right in front of the fire." And
Yeah.
so I knew there was going to be fire.
That's what
So-
it felt like. Oh my God. Yeah, you're just a stronger person than I am. I would have had to have been committed.
Yeah, I rewatched the first 3 in like a month span, knowing I was going to see 4 and I wanted to prepare myself, like exactly remember every little piece because it had been a while since I had actually watched them, especially the first one. My girls really like the third one, so we've watched that a few times, but I was like, that was even hard watching it like a week before watching Toy Story 4, so I can't imagine doing them back to back.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've seen the first one or the second one. I really need to go back and watch those very first films and watch again how it all started. But I have to say, I really liked 4 a heck of a lot more than I thought I would, because I just kind of go in now just expecting a good story because these people are very good at that. But I mean, I liked everything about 4. I liked the story and even the characters that originally weren't supposed to be necessarily the nicest people on the planet. You kind of liked them too to some degree, or at least you had sympathy for Gabby.
Yeah, but not the ventriloquist dummies. They're the worst. I still don't like them.
Forget that.
Yeah, I tweeted out the other day that those ventriloquist dummies reminded me of 2 things. That was either Toy Story's Agent Smith, since there were so many of them that looked the same. But I also thought of that 1970s horror movie called Magic about a ventriloquist doll that was alive, and he looked a lot like that.
Yeah, no, thank you. You know what's
Hard no.
crazy? During the interviews, they were talking about Christina Hendricks and them casting her for Gabby, and they said they sat her down and they're explaining to her, well, she has these henchmen that are these horrible ventriloquist dummies that nobody would ever want, and she said, I actually have one. And I wanted one when I was a kid, and my parents wouldn't buy it for me. So I purchased one when I was older, and they were like, oh, so you're perfect for Gabby.
Oh my gosh, yes.
One of the things that I'm kind of known for is my obsession with T-shirts, especially tied to things that I really, really like. And one of the first things I did within the first 2 or 3 days of seeing Toy Story 4, in fact, I tweeted this out too, with the text that said, I enjoyed something when I already go out and buy a T-shirt. So I have a T-shirt with Ducky and Bunny on it.
Oh, I got one with Forky, and it says "Talkin' Trash," which I was like, I like that.
Oh,
one.
yeah. The Ducky and Bunny shirt I have says, Ducky and Bunny stick with me.
Oh, I loved Ducky and Bunny too. They were so funny.
Oh, my God, they were funny.
Dude,
I love it.
They had me dying. Yeah. Oh, they were hilarious. They just kept jokes going.
Yeah.
Like that one plush rush joke. Like it just kept going.
My God.
And you would think it would get like, okay, we get it. But no, I started crying. I was laughing so hard in the theater. I couldn't breathe. It was so funny.
Yeah, my wife is tired of me walking around the house going, went to a galaxy far, far away and got kicked in the head.
Yeah.
And then the icing on the cake is just the Margaret tackle.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I did not expect that.
They are hilarious. And I imagine a bunch of that is improv. They basically said they just stuck them in a recording room together and were like, have fun, It's like,
Yeah, they've always been funny.
Yeah, I actually I went back and tried to do some searching on like little known things about Toy Story, and I did find something done quite a few years ago on BuzzFeed. So it's talking about things you didn't know about the trilogy. So obviously this was made before 4.
Yeah.
And the first thing that that was interesting about it was that at this point in time, it says that Toy Story 3 was the first of the trilogy not to pull 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. But what's funny is Toy Story 3 pulled 99%.
Yeah.
Because people don't like crying in public.
Yeah.
Right. Right. I'll watch it in my house and cry, but if I have to cry out in the theater, I always hate that. And I walk out and my face is red. And
Yes.
why did I wear mascara today? I should have known. This is a
know.
Pixar movie. What was I thinking?
Yeah, because there's also people in there that just don't cry at anything, and they're like looking for the
Psychos.
people that are bawling in the theater.
Right. Yeah. Which is probably everybody but them.
Yeah.
One of the things I noticed too, and I always find these fascinating because you start thinking about what if, at least according to this article, Pixar originally wanted to get Jim Carrey to voice Buzz Lightyear, but they couldn't because the budget was so tight. And that's the other thing that seems to be pretty consistent in some of these things that might have happened. It seems like some things didn't happen because A, it was a limited budget the first time, or not near the budget it is now, and it's like nobody was really sure how good how successful it was going to be. There was a lot of reservations because they weren't necessarily expecting it to become what it is.
Yeah, it was a huge gamble.
I actually was at the Pixar archives for an Incredibles 2 event, but there was a whole list in this one glass case. There was probably 30 different names that Toy Story was almost called. Toy Story was actually the placeholder name, like it's a story about toys. It's Toy Story. And they ended up just getting so used to it and liking it so much over anything else that they went with Toy Story, which, can you imagine if it had a different name?
No, it's so pure that it's perfect.
Well, on this list, it said the movie was originally titled "You Are a Toy."
Oh, yep. I think that was one on the list for sure. Then one was like Andy's Toy Box. But every single one of them we read, we were like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. No,
Yeah.
it's Toy Story.
Disgusting.
Yeah. What were they thinking?
Well,
But of course,
we were just talking about, kind of the risk here and things that had to go right and fall into place. The 17th thing on this list says Pixar presented an early draft of the film to Disney on November 19th, 1993. The result was disastrous. The film was deemed unwatchable. It presented Woody as a, quote, sarcastic jerk who was constantly insulting the other toys. Disney immediately shut down production pending a new script. The story team spent a week on a new script to make Woody a more likable character instead of the sarcastic jerk.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, because Woody's kind of the heart of the whole thing. So I can imagine there wouldn't have been a 2, 3, or 4 if
No.
that route had gone that way. Yeah.
Go back and we need to give the sarcastic jerk his own ending.
Yeah, right.
He deserves that.
He's a little mean to Buzz, but it's all out of, love at the beginning. It's, hey, you are a toy.
The other thing that's just fascinating to me, and I've watched, documentaries that show, the work that goes into these things, and the patience you have to have as animators. I mean, I remember watching an old documentary I don't know, a few years ago, and they were showing how they were animating Yoda and how this guy was in his office working on Yoda, and he would spend hours just trying to get Yoda to point and pull his finger back like a human being. And in this BuzzFeed list, it says, in their most productive week during production, Pixar completed 3.5 minutes of animation.
Oh, my God.
Oh my God.
Well,
That's
why it takes
painful.
years and years. Like, I think they've been working on 4 for like 5 years, and that's with all these advancements. So can you imagine? The first one must have taken,
Yeah, no kidding.
who knows? And that is funny to sit and watch, because like I said, I rewatched the first 3. If you watch the first one now, it is, I don't want to say it's not unwatchable, but it is like, wow, like you're looking at the animation like, I remember this, I thought this was mind-blowing when I watched it. And I'm like, that doesn't even look like a human being.
No. But it was mind-blowing for that time.
I know, it's crazy.
Well, the other thing I think about now is You know, you were talking about how the filmmakers are not ready to say that there's another story there, and I think that's really smart. You know, our first episode of the Disney Plus Streamcast featured Jeff Loeb, and, you know, a lot of people are asking him about more stories of this character and this character, or Agent Carter or whatnot, and that was his exact response. We can pursue those things as long as there is a story that's there to be told. But what I also think about is, let's just say they decide, okay, we're done with the movies. I have to think that a Forky, because the Forky series, if I'm not mistaken, is they're little shorts, and they're not like a, you know, they're not full-blown stories. He's like learning things about
Yeah, it's like
life.
questions that he asks
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, you know, you have that, and then, of course, they have pretty good presence in both theme parks now. So I can't imagine that with that much investment still in merchandise and theme parks and everything else, that there's nothing else to do. So if they don't do films, I can't help but wonder what they will do instead.
Yeah, I mean, there could be so many different. Knowing that they're giving Forky something,
Yeah.
I was like, would they do like a Ducky and Bunny thing?
I would
My
love
daughter, yeah, I would love that. I would just love to see them because you know they would just come up with the most funniest things.
Oh my God, it'd
It'd be so funny. But my 6-year-old really wants something. She's like, I want to know about Gabby Gabby and where she goes, because my 6-year-old loves her. She talks about she's her favorite character in the movie. She learned so much from her, and I'm like, wow, you know. I mean, she cried over Gabby Gabby twice. If you've seen the
That's
movie,
Toy
you know
Story, the
exactly the
power.
moments I'm talking about.
oh
But yet, you know, and just I was like, you know, I would like to see the future of her, actually. And there's so many little, you know, like what they're doing with Forky. They could do so many different little things. But then I would want them to think long and hard about an actual full movie and where it would go, because I wouldn't want them to do it just to do it. It would have to be done right. Like this one, I feel like was.
I'd like them to think long and hard about a Duke Kaboom.
Yes.
I think that would be incredible. I also think that Keanu would be on board.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, because with, you know, Disney Plus, it doesn't have to be anything crazy and lengthy. They can just do little shorts like Forky. I'd take it. I'd be happy. And I had read that Keanu actually had a really, really good time and was getting really, really into the Duke Kaboom character and just asking everybody tons of questions about how the character might be. And so, you know, if the actor's passionate and the team is passionate, Duke Kaboom is awesome. It literally can't fail.
Yeah. Did you know he did the poses while he was recording? He told us that. He said, he was like, I would stand up and be like, kaboom, yeah. And like do the poses, which doesn't surprise me one bit.
Icing on the cake.
Exactly. And it proves like what you said is right. He's so passionate about it. And I think he would be, you know, he'd be behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Duke Kaboom. He's fun.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I even think about how Universal is still coming up with ways to keep, you know, Harry Potter in people's mindset, with the fact that they have a theme park invested in it and in 2 places in the country. They added the new ride in Orlando, but then their thing was obviously the prequel series, and then they're doing all these extra things on Pottermore, and they're doing things through mobile games.
I was going to say that game now just came out right at the
Yes.
same time the new ride came out. Pretty convenient.
Yeah, I mean, that's something.
Yeah. Good marketing.
So I have to think that there's things in mind, because I don't think you put all this into it and then go, oh crap, now what are we going to do? I think they've already got a long-term plan, or at least of options, and we just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's so many things they can do. With Disney Plus, you record 10 little shorts and put them on there. You know, it'd be so easy for them.
You know,
Not easy, but
Right. We just talked about how hard it is.
Yeah.
And we're just like, give us a series. Let's
What are
go.
you guys doing? We want like 15 different series. Here you go.
You know, the other thing that has been kind of a downer in a way, even though that you can't help, you know, these things happening when you work on films that span like 20 some odd years. You know, originally, you know, Slinky Dog was Jim Varney, who, you know, I loved Jim Varney growing up in some of his movies. And then we, of course, had Don Rickles to do Mr. Potato Head. And I read the other day that, you know, he obviously passed away literally just recently before he had a chance to do all the lines for the film. and they actually figured out a way to take lines from previous films and also lines from previous recordings that they didn't use, put it all together, and I guess it gave them enough to have Don Rickles in the entire film.
Yes, and they talked about that in the interviews, and they said that his family was very supportive and very like, what do you need from us? We really want him to be a part of this. We know that's what he would want. And so it's literally all him. It's all him, which is
awesome.
Crazy. And again, with like technology and like the things you can do, and like they just have these recordings and they can clean them up and use them, and it's crazy.
And
it's
do it
amazing.
seamlessly somehow.
Yeah,
like,
because
it
I'm
was
sure
indistinguishable.
Yeah, I'm sure it was some sentences were probably cut up words from different. I don't think it was a full line, and for it to sound like it's, he's reading a line when it's from 4 different lines he said previously in different films. It's nuts.
And I think he would have been absolutely tickled.
Me too.
That's just another reason why it's good to do more lines than...
Yeah, right.
They don't necessarily make the film. It's really something. It'll be interesting to see what they do next, but I'm definitely looking forward to the Forky series. And I would also like to just hear from fans and have them start saying things that they want. I can't imagine we're alone in embracing the ideas of some of these characters getting their own properties or shows, whether it be Forky or anybody.
I know. You really could with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Tessa, thank you so much for joining us today on the program. We've had a chance to tell people a little bit about what you do and about your website and podcast, but what do you have happening there coming up that you would like people to know about?
Well, not too much right now. I'm kind of hoping to make it work to get to D23. I have my fingers crossed on that. So hopefully you will see coverage for me on that. I have to plan a few more things out. But, I just do movie reviews and stuff like that for anything that comes out. Like, I just did a trailer reaction for Disney's Mulan trailer that came out today, which was exciting. So just basically look for whenever there's anything dropped, like San Diego Comic-Con coming up, I'm sure there's going to be a ton. So I'll be covering all that stuff.
Yeah, if you manage to get out to D23, we'd love to talk to you again, and because we're going to be watching that closely. I know that I think Friday they've already got plans to make some Disney Plus announcements.
Yeah, I know. That's mainly why I want to be there. And I was like, I don't need to go this year. And then they said that, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to try to find a way to go.
They said, oh, yes, you are.
Right.
They're
you don't
geniuses.
Want to know about Disney Plus? Yes, you do. Come on out here. The weather's great.
Great discussion. Thanks so much for taking time to be with us, Tess, and we look forward to talking with you soon, and we'll keep an eye on the things that you're covering.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and I'm happy to come back anytime.
Well, as I mentioned, you can subscribe to the Disney Plus Streamcast on podcast hubs like iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify, but you can also stream or download episodes at DisneyPlusStreamcast.com.
And don't forget to follow us on Twitter for more news and content at Disney Plus Cast. And definitely don't forget to participate in our Twitter polls.
We're going to be back in 2 weeks to give you some more insight into WandaVision. Specifically, we're going to talk about the relationship in the comic books and what that could mean for the television series.
I cannot wait to talk about this one. You know that I'll talk about Vision any chance I get.
Oh, yes.
I love Scarlet Witch just as much, and so this is going to be really fun. Plus, Nathan gets to get in on it with us.
Yeah, and I know both of you are very familiar with this and are very anxious to talk about it. So if you've been wondering about them and why they're going to be in this show and get a little comics history, this is going to be a perfect episode for you in 2 weeks. But for now, thanks for joining us on the Disney Plus Streamcast.
Goodbye, everybody.
The entertainment, adventure, and magic on Disney Plus never stops. So join us for the next episode of the Disney Plus Streamcast. You can subscribe to the show on podcast providers like iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Search, stream, or download any episode on our website. While you're there, get news updates, watch videos, follow us on social media, and check out the Streamcast Spotlight. Just go to DisneyPlusStreamcast.com. Thank you for listening.